Thanks so much. It's wonderful to be back here at Future Lab. I want to start today with a story. It's a story that starts on March 7th of this year. That was 10 days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I got an email message from a Ukrainian educator named Alicia Vlasy. If we can start the slides. So Alicia, I'd never met her before, but she wrote to me and she said, I'm Alicia Vlasy, a Ukrainian teacher, a mother, and a children's poet. Now it is a very hard time for my native country. I decided to write to you and ask for your help to create the largest wave of kindness. And she went on to write, she said, there's so many people on the planet who need help. What can each of us do? We can create our own wave of kindness to send to those people. And then she's reaching out for help. She says, maybe we can realize it on Scratch. You can make a beautiful animation, a kind message, or simply draw a peaceful picture. So she's referring to Scratch, the programming language and online community that was developed by my group. And she was hoping that we could help her support children around the world developing this wave of kindness. And we were really touched by this message. As I talked to her over the Zoom in the weeks after that, there were air raid sirens in the background, but she was committed to uniting the children around the world. So we created a studio on Scratch called Spreading Kindness. And within a couple of days, there were thousands of projects by children around the world sharing some of the ways that they were spreading kindness in their lives and some strategies to help bring some support to people who are going through difficult times. Some of the projects were specifically reaching out to the people of Ukraine, offering them support and love. As you can see in some of these projects, there were advanced animations. It's not so easy to create that animation in Scratch. So the children were learning technical skills, but they were also learning how to connect with other people and to understand how others were going through difficult times. As Alicia and I saw this, and we were very moved by what children around the world were creating, we did understand that these projects were not going to stop the hate and aggression that was happening in Ukraine. They were not going to stop the war, but we thought they served a very useful purpose. We saw each of these projects as a ripple of kindness. And we knew that when the ripples would add together of many different projects, they could add to a wave of kindness. And over time, that could create a culture of kindness. And when we thought of a long-term strategy to counter the hatred and aggression of the world, we thought that there were two important ingredients. We thought it was always important to engage the next generation of children to help develop this new culture, and then we need to work with them to foster a culture of creativity and kindness so they could express themselves and come up with new ideas, but also to connect with other people with kindness and with caring. And I think those have been ideas that have been underlying all of the work that we do in my group at the MIT Media Lab. We sometimes focus on the importance of supporting creativity, but just as important in our work has been supporting this in creating a culture of kindness. We thought about that when we created a network of after-school learning centers called computer clubhouses. We had 4 guiding principles. One of them was we wanted children to learn by designing, learn by creating things. And when you create things, you develop your creative capacities. And we wanted children to follow their interests, to develop their curiosity, because we knew that when children follow their interests, they're willing to work longer and harder and persist in the face of challenges and to make deeper connections to ideas. And we didn't want children to do this on their own, but to do it as part of a community. The best creative ideas come when you work with others and learn from others, and also learn how to collaborate with others. But I think the fourth guiding principle maybe is most important, but is often overlooked. We want to create an environment of trust and respect. And sometimes people say that and say, oh yes, well, it's important for people to be nice to each other. But it's more than that. We felt that none of the other things would work unless you have an environment of trust and respect, where people trust each other, respect each other, are kind and caring with one another. If you're in an environment and when something goes wrong, someone makes fun of you, you're not going to take risks anymore. You're not going to try new things. You won't develop creativity. So we think it's important to have this environment of trust and respect so that people are willing and feel safe and comfortable to take the risks that are needed to become creative, but also develop the caring and kindness that are so important to support the type of world that we live in. And we took these same principles when we created the Scratch programming language and community. So with Scratch, children create interactive stories and games, but then share them in the online community. And the sharing, I think, is a very important part. And we devoted a lot of effort to create a welcoming community where people would feel comfortable and welcomed to participate in the community. I think many of you know many online communities are not very kind and welcoming. So it takes hard work to create a kind and welcoming community. And that's a big part of the effort. People often focus on the innovative graphical programming language, and that was important. But having an environment where people feel welcome and safe to share with each other is just as important. Let me show some examples from some children in the community. We asked children a couple years ago, why did you start to use Scratch? So I'll show one of the projects that was done by a member of the Scratch community whose username is Cool Jules. So she created a project, and I'll show some of the screenshots. She said, so why do I Scratch? Scratch is something I can express myself with. You can make anything here, from art to a game and so much more. So she saw it as an environment for creativity, that you could build on your own interests, your own creativity, your own curiosity to express yourself in many ways. And like many people, they often come to Scratch to express themselves, but they stay because of the community. And Cool Jules went on to say, the whole community is amazing. You can make so many friends. But it's not just about, oh, it's nice to make friends. Oops. She said, everybody here is so kind, creative, and accepting. And that's what made her come back and what led her to do such creative work there. And she said, I always look forward to opening my messages because all of them are nice and make me happy. To be really honest, I never thought I'd be into coding until I found Scratch. So with Scratch, the point is not just to learn the technical skills, although of course that can be very important in today's world, but we wanted to appeal to children from all different backgrounds and all different interests, like Cool Jules, who want to connect with others and develop not just their coding skills, but also their empathy skills to connect with others and care with others. Let me show you I'm going to show you 2 videos of some examples from around the world of other people using Scratch and talking about their experience. The first one is from South Africa, where they're talking about the ability of Scratch to let them be very personal in the way they express things.
Scratch is not like a computer language to me. It's more like my diary. I get to do my own story.
It's more about your imagination because there's no limit to it, so you can do mostly whatever you want.
So again, I love how she described it as her diary. There's nothing more personal than your diary. This is not just about learning how to solve a problem, although of course that's important, but how to express yourself in a personal way and to connect with others in a personal way, to use your imagination, and to do with things that aren't just for yourself, but connect to the community. So the next video is from a group of children in India, where they were using Scratch to address challenges that they saw were important for their community.
बच्चे अलग अलग तरीके से अलग अलग मॉडल्स बनाए उसमें एक बच्चे की एक सोच है वो कुछ जानवरों के बारे में बनाई कुछ स्कूल के बारे में
पानी में बहुत सारी आलूदगी फैल रही है इसको रोकने के लिए हमने एक छोटा सा एक्ट तैयार किया है
So again, they're working on things that they care about personally, but also things that they care about for their community. The water is polluted. We see so many projects on Scratch with children talking about the issues that are important in their community. So many issues about the environment and what things they can do and why they're concerned and what their community can do. So children are working with a sense of purpose and caring about solving problems for their community because they care about those around them. We want to continue to expand these ideas to get more and more children around the world thinking this way so they can develop into creative, caring adults. A new project that we're working on now is inspired by Scratch, but designed specifically for mobile phones. We call it Octoplay. And we wanted to focus on mobile phones because we know that for many children around the world, the mobile phone is the only digital device they will have access to. And with Scratch, you can't develop on a mobile phone. You make your projects on a laptop or a desktop. And oftentimes, when children use a phone, they use it for watching a movie or playing a game or sending a message. We want them to be creating things. And there aren't so many ways for children to create on phones. So Octoplay is intended for children to create on phones and then share their creations with others. So we talk about create, play, share, anytime, anywhere. Because you can have your phone with you all the time, no matter where you are at any time, you can make use of this. So in fact, the little animation there that's being shown is from an example with an early prototype of Scratch. And it was one of the researchers in our group was at the beach with her daughter. And her daughter looked in the ocean and saw a fish and was excited to see a fish. But her daughter's favorite color was purple. So she said, I hope we see a purple fish. And the mother realized they probably wouldn't see a purple fish, but they took out the phone and she said, we could create a purple fish with Octoplay. So the daughter then created this project with the graphical blocks, took a picture of the ocean, then animated a fish and made it turn purple. So it's a way that she was able to live out her ideas and then share this animation with her father that was at home and send it to him. So with Octoplay, we see it as a way to connect with the world, take images of the world, sounds of the world, bring it into your project wherever you are. It's not something that's just in a computer lab once a week in school, but something that you can do all the time whenever you have access to a phone. And we've been excited to see all the different ways children are using it. It's been wonderful to collaborate with people here at Future Lab, where they're trying out our early prototypes. This is still just a prototype. It's not out in the world yet. But we're working with different organizations like Future Lab, where they're trying out the prototype and giving feedback to make sure it aligns with the interests and the culture of children here in Korea, as well as we tried elsewhere around the world. Let me show you a few other examples of what children are creating. The next project was made by a 9-year-old boy the first time he learned Octoplay. And his uncle had a birthday, so he decided to make a birthday card for his uncle and then sent it to his uncle. So again, it wasn't just about creating something, but sharing with someone you care and showing a special feeling for somebody else. With Octoplay also, we're using the different sensors of the phone. So when you carry the phone, you can detect when you shake the phone or tilt the phone. It's like this next example is making a racing game using the tilt sensor. So they put the phone on a Frisbee, and as you tilt it, it steers the car. So again, in that first example by the ocean, you were bringing the world into the phone. Here you're putting the phone into the world. Because the phone is so small and mobile, you can put it and mix it in the physical world. And we don't want the digital world to be separate. It should be integrated into the physical world. I'll show one more example where it's making use of the magnet sensor on the phones. Actually, before we started work on this project, I didn't realize that all phones have a magnet sensor, so it can detect when you have a magnet near the phone. So we have a programming block now that says when you detect a magnet, you can do something. Phones also have a flashlight that you can turn on and off. So in this example, you'll see the phone is inside the person's shirt, and it will turn the flashlight on when the magnet gets close. See the magnets on the heart. So again, connecting with something that's very personal and meaningful. And again, with everything we want to do, it's not just about learning the technical skills, but learning to come up with creative ideas and connect with other people. Because we see that's the thing that's going to be so important, not just for children developing their own happiness, but also for changing the culture of the world. So at both of those levels, we see these projects making a contribution. As Mr. Kwan was saying earlier, it's not just about developing the skills for the workplace, but also being able to be happy in your life, to be able to make connections with other people. And through that, if we spread this through the culture, also to lead to a better society. So as we're working on Octoplay, as I mentioned, we're trying it in many places around the world. We already have translations to Korean and a dozen other languages. We're testing it out, here in Korea, but also in South Africa and Brazil and in India, to make sure it connects with children's interests and needs everywhere around the world. And we're learning so much from all these different collaborations. Here in Korea, we're participating as part of the Future Learning Collective. So we're working together with Smilegate Foundation and Future Lab to be able to support these types of creative, caring experiences. So they're doing workshops with children. In fact, right now, there's an Octoplay workshop going on downstairs in Future Lab. There'll be others this afternoon where we're trying out and learning about how children make use of this and how we can continue to improve it. So we're seeing so much from, although we create the software, we're always amazed and surprised by how it is that children are using it. And we continue to adapt it. We hope to eventually get this out to publicly available sometime next year. But right now, we're learning so much by working with the partners. And some of it is working with young people, but it's also important to be working with educators to be able to support the use of these materials. So with Future Learning Collective, they're working with networks of educators to help them learn how to support creative, caring learning experiences. So this is from an online course that the Future Learning Collective is offering based on a course that we developed at MIT called Learning Creative Learning. And in there, they discuss the different ideas about why creative, caring learning is so important, and then how to support it, in classrooms and at home. Future Learning Collective is one great example that's supporting these ideas, but we see other great examples around the world. We have another collaboration in Brazil called the Brazilian Creative Learning Network. And they're also trying out Octoplay, but also having events. Like they have an event of invention and creativity that brings together parents and teachers and children to learn how to create and express themselves. They're also running workshops for policymakers, because we also need to make change on how governments and policymakers implement educational policies. Oftentimes, there are many constraints that make it difficult to support creative, caring learning in schools. If you only have class periods that are 50 minutes long, it's difficult to work on creative projects. If all of the disciplines are separated from one another, it's difficult to work on creative projects. So we're working with policymakers, giving them a chance to do hands-on some of these activities so they get a better understanding of why it's important for us to change some of the ways that we organize schools. We also in Brazil had a campaign across the country around the Waves of Kindness. Last May, they dedicated the entire month to Waves of Kindness. And across the country, in many different sites, they had children and educators developing projects to show how they could, examples of how they were doing kind activities for others that were in need, and just sharing strategies of how to support kindness. So these are things that we've been so inspired, seeing what's going on in Brazil, what's happening here with Future Learning Collective, and seeing other great examples around the world. But what's really important, if we want to make this into a global movement, we need to have better ways of connecting all of these ideas together. We see great examples here and there. We need better ways of connecting educators and educational organizations together so they can share their ideas and learn from one another and learn about the best examples. We need to work together to create new tools in the spirit of Scratch and Octoplay and others that let children create and share and imagine and develop their curiosity. And we need to all come together to be able to advocate for change in the educational system. We need to have ways of bringing about change, in order to, open up a different approach to learning. In too many places, education is still just seen as a way of delivering instruction to children. And we need to have people see a new way of learning that's based on exploring and experimenting and expressing. So to support this global movement, we're developing a new network called the Fiddlehead Network for Creative Learning. And we've had great discussions with people at Smilegate Foundation and Future Lab about working together on this with other organizations around the world so we can support this global movement and all learn with and from one another. The name Fiddlehead comes from the plant that's shown over there. It's an early stage that develops into the fern plant. So we like it because it's something that thrives across the world in many different environments. The fiddlehead goes everywhere and thrives. And it's part of an early stage of development, the same way we want to support all stages of development. And we love the spiral because it matches the approach to learning that we support. We talk about the creative learning spiral, where people learn best by imagining and then creating something, playing with your creation, sharing with others, getting feedback and reflecting on what you've learned through your experimenting and from the sharing, and then it gives you new ideas, and the spiral just keeps on going. So I think we're really dedicated to now focus on how we can bring together people around the world in order to support this movement and drive meaningful change in the ways people think about education and learning and the way they support children. This is going to require support from people in all different parts of the educational ecosystem, from teachers, from parents, from policymakers, from companies, from publishers. We want to bring all of them together. And we need all of you to help as well. This is something that no one group can do. Everybody needs to come together. So as we continue to work on this, we hope all of you will join us, try to help support this new approach to support creative, caring learning experiences. We really feel this is essential to create the type of world that we want to live in, to be able to bring about a world that we hope our children can grow up in, to make sure that the children lead not just productive lives, but happy, meaningful, fulfilling lives, and live in a world where they're able to continue to express their curiosity, learn new things, and connect with others to make a better society. Thank you very much.